a historic first of its kind announcement from President Joe Biden on student loan forgiveness.
We will forgive $10,000 in outstanding federal student loans. In addition, students who come from low-income families, which allowed them to qualify to receive a Pell Grant, will have their debt reduced $20,000. Both of these targeted actions are for families who need it the most. Working and middle-class people hit especially hard during the pandemic, making under $125,000 a year.
The president has finally delivered on one of his most anticipated campaign promises, forgiving some student loans for some Americans, specifically 43 million Americans who carry federal student loan debt. The move has proven, a bit, dare I say, controversial, particularly in right-wing media spaces, where rhetoric like this is popping up all over the place.
An awful lot of Americans choose not to go to college. And then there are those Americans who borrowed money to pay for school and paid it back. In what way is it fair to those taxpayers?
The problem with that argument is it creates a new bar for basically all public policy. Any public policy that you've ever heard of, and it's a standard that we've just never adhered to. It's the idea that for a public policy to be effective, it has to impact each and every single American equally. And that's really never, ever been the standard for any other piece of public policy before, or even recent policies that helped business owners during the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, or corporations who wanted more tax breaks from Donald Trump so they could afford to give high wages to their workers. Wait, I have to check my notes, hold on. They didn't do that, even though they said they would. Most of these corporations stopped at receiving the tax cut. And this principle applies whether we're talking about free school lunch programs or the pandemic-era PPP loans. Policy isn't going to help every single person in this country the same way all the time. So let's just reject that entire line of attack against this announcement, because it's not based in reality, and it's really not in good faith. Remember that we've never used that standard before. Like back in 2017, when Donald Trump had a tax cut that disproportionately benefited wealthy Americans. Let's not try a new standard now. Let's not do that. Let's operate and engage in good faith. Because at the end of the day, the important thing to consider about a public policy decision is the impact on people and the practical implications, not the political spin, bad faith attacks on that public policy, or any political fallout. Not only will this provide tangible relief for millions of Americans and their families, it'll also help advance racial equity. We've talked a lot on this show about how Black and brown Americans are disproportionately burdened by student loan debt. And if you think about the history of this country and how we systematically kept Black people from even learning things or reading, the importance of education, it's crystal clear why Black Americans think it's so important. It can't be understated. That's why the policy decision should be considered through a different lens than, what about me, but what about me chorus. And that's the one that's loudly complaining about this move by the Biden administration right now. And as the president highlighted on Wednesday, those borrowers on average have less family wealth to help pay for education in the first place, which means they're more likely to need to take out larger loans. Black women, specifically, on average carry the highest levels of student debt and therefore stand to benefit immensely from this specific policy decision. And recipients of the federal Pell Grant, which is awarded based on exceptional financial need, will qualify for the maximum amount of loan forgiveness. Data indicates Black people, Black borrowers, are roughly twice as likely to have received Pell Grants versus their white counterparts. NBC News' Tremaine Lee was down at Texas Southern University on Thursday. It's an HBCU, I might add. And he spoke to some students down there about this policy and what the decision means to them.
I feel like that's a great thing because my mom, she has student loans right now, and I know I'm about to have student loans, and I really want her to be forgiven because, you know, certain things you can't do with student loans.
It's cool. It's nice. It's really nice to have some type of debt taken away. It does lessen our load but we still we still owe more than we even took out in the first place. So that $20,000 or that $10,000 is just the interest.
I think it's a great start. I mean, it's not everything that we want, but it's a great start. I'm a student, I'm a junior. I do have a little debt. It's not as much as everyone else, but if it's cleared, it's gonna help me out a lot.
Joining me now for more is Derek Johnson, the president and CEO of the NAACP. First off, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
So help us understand the impact of this announcement as you see it. Do you view this policy as a policy decision that benefits specifically Black American families?
I think this is a great step. It benefits Americans who have worked hard, done exactly what they were told to do: go to school, get good grades, and earn a college degree. And for some families, for some students, they did not have the benefit of generational wealth because of structural barriers, because of the lack of home ownership and property. And so they had to rely on Pell Grants, they had to rely on student loans. But unfortunately, the cost of tuition far exceeded the Pell Grant. The cost of tuition far exceeded one's ability to work their way through college, resulting in a large number of individuals depending on student loans. And unfortunately, many of those student loans became predatory in nature. They would charge higher interest rates than a business loan. African Americans and first generation students carried the loan debt longer, resulting in some of them paying more in interest than they were in principal. And it became a bar to entry of home ownership because of the concept of credit debt ratio. Many individuals simply could not qualify for a home, which is the number one thing in this country that helped increase wealth because of student loans. So this is a great step in the right direction.
And I want to read a tweet from an economist, William Spriggs. He is an economics professor at Howard University here in Washington, D.C. It says, missing in this conversation on Biden's student loan forgiveness is about half of the 27.5 million households with student debt are people who didn't actually finish college. Of those 13.9 million households, roughly 4.6 million will now be debt-free. This isn't about helping the privileged. One of the critiques we've seen over the last 24 hours is that, and even before this announcement was made, was that this is going to help people who don't actually need the help. Unpack for us and help us understand how you see it in terms of this policy helping people who may have taken out loans, they went to college, but because of an emergency, a baby, a parent's illness, whatever reason, life circumstances, didn't allow them to complete their degrees, so they can't get that higher salary. They're saddled with debt, and yet they don't have the degree that can help them make a lot of money so they can pay it back. I mean, speak to how important it is for us to think through how this policy impacts people on the full spectrum.
But this is a tremendous help to that population. You know, you add individuals who started and could finish because of life circumstances. You add in the debt cancellations for the predatory colleges that sprung up over the last 20 years. You add in the public sector workers, teachers, people who work for municipal and state government and are serving our democracy and our communities and paid less. That's the population that's been impacted. The 20 million people who woke up this morning and realized they no longer have to pay any debt on student loan. And as a result of that, they now can qualify to fully engage in what we call the America story: home ownership, property purchase, and become entrepreneurs because they're no longer saddled with that debt. You know, people who put out these fake arguments against middle America versus middle America is not being honest in the debate. And I like how you started. This is truly about people and not profit for corporate interests. And we need to focus in on and celebrate that we are now empowering people and getting away from the profiteering off the taxpayers' back.
I love that you mentioned teachers, because we were talking about that as a team earlier this morning, about the fact that teachers in most instances need a master's degree in order to teach children, and yet they don't get paid what lawyers get paid, right? They have a master's degree and a substantial amount of debt in most cases, but they don't make enough to pay it off quickly in any way, shape, or form. Derek Johnson, President and CEO of the NAACP, thank you so much for being here today and starting us off. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.